Welcome to the first ever live show of Ryan's Recap. We're here to give you the big stories, and we're going to talk about some corruption in the American judicial system. So you need to stay tuned for this one. We start off with breaking news. Obama has shown some recent support for Hillary Clinton. He spoke out against Donald Trump, and similar to his speeches when he made his presidential run, he had a strong message at the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia, saying America doesn't need a self-declared savior like Trump to fix it. Obama made mention to gender references, also by saying Hillary Clinton would be a good president because no man or woman has ever been prepared to be president. And at the end of his speech, in a moment of unity, Clinton, who once ran against Obama, came out and hugged the president. We also have breaking news. This is out of Everett, where human remains have been found. The same place where human remains were found in July, they were discovered today near a national grid in Everett. It's undetermined whether the bones are those of the same victim whose remains were found in July, but District Attorney Maren Ryan estimated the victim had been dead for 1 to 5 years. The victim is a white woman between the ages of 26 and 52 years of age, and anywhere between 5'1" and 5'9". Anyone with information should contact police at 781-897-6600. Now we'll take a look at a Major League Baseball segment I produced where fans are getting injured at Major League ballparks, and it's a serious problem. And we're going to get that up to you right after the break. So also, the Patriots are without Tom Brady. Tom Brady and the New England Brady Bunch are preparing for their season. And without the star of their show, Tom Brady, the decision on Deflategate was upheld, and he'll miss the regular season, the first 4 games of it. Brady might not need the practice, but he cannot take part in practice or in preseason. And the 4-game suspension comes from the discrepancy over the deflated footballs in the 2015 AFC Championship game. The argument afterwards stayed on the minds of Patriots fans and in courts for a weary 18 months. And right now, Jimmy Garoppolo is the backup to Brady. And we'll see if he can maintain in the 4 games Brady will miss. In other news, a director of the Boston Community Center has been fired. She's been placed on leave after a boy has drowned at a beach in South Boston. The Curley Community Center director was let go after an investigation of the boy's death, and there was no video camera surveillance in the area to tell what happened. A lifeguard spotted the boy near M Street Beach. Mayor Marty Walsh visited the grieving family later, saying the faculty tries to not turn any kids away because these kids come to our center. Their families have no other options for them. Police are dying in bunches, and it's very sad. The amount of police that have died from guns is up 78% from last year. In all, 32 police officers have been shot to death in 2016, according to the National Law Enforcement's Memorial Fund. Gun-related deaths accounted for only 18 deaths last year. The most recent shooting in Baton Rouge took the lives of 3 officers. Before that, a sniper attack in Dallas on law enforcement officers killed 5. The Freddie Gray case has completely concluded, and no one has been charged. Over a year after a black man's neck was broken and he died at the hands of police, the finding is no one will be going to jail. Massive protests, angry riots, people fired, but no jail time. The man who is dead is Freddie Gray, and he was arrested April 2015. Baltimore State Attorney Marilyn Mosby dropped the case against the rest of the 6 officers charged in the Gray case. Mosby did blame the police department for a bias investigation and stated that that was the reason no one was convicted. She said, "What we realized very early on in this case was that police investigating police, whether they're friends or colleagues, was problematic." And in other news, I am actually been the top seller at my local grocery store. You may recognize me at that store. The last few years I've been working, and it's the second year in a row that I have raised over $2,000 in Jimmy Fund money. It's felt really good to fight childhood cancer. It's a cause that I believe everyone should be giving towards to help out the community, help out everyone. And I've been talking to people at the local store, people who give me their stories about their dying relative who has cancer, or someone who's fighting for their life, or someone who has died. And overall, it's been inspiration to me. So I'll keep fighting for you, and you keep fighting for cancer and trying to bring it down. And now we're going to take a quick break to go to see my PSA that I made for my commercial on Ryan's Recap. Hello there, I'm Ryan Chevalier, the host and reporter of BNN-TV's Ryan's Recap, news and sports show. Check out just what you can see on Ryan's Recap. In Boston, schools have been found to have high levels of lead. One of the schools that was found to have an exceeding amount of lead in its water fountains was here at Harvard University is trying to end gender discrimination.
It's not always easy being a dad.
Do you have panda asthma too? Does that run in the family?
This is the home of the most priceless kung fu artifacts.
But when you make an effort,
Dad, we're not supposed to touch anything. Oh, sorry.
Go along, son!
it's always worth it.
Whoa! Master!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
I am gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. At work or at play, you're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Oh, hey, she's cute. Nice going, man. Things are going great for you. You've earned a night out. Good drinks, good friends. Yeah, we can go ahead and call this a good night. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Not smart. Yeah, I saw that coming. Say goodbye to her. Ouch, that'll hurt your bank account. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. I hope you like eating frozen dinners. Alone. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
What are you, superheroes?
Just four brothers who hate bullies and love this city. Gear up, guys.
A live show today, and I had a little production I put together on basically all the incidences that have happened in Major League Baseball with fans, and a very fine line between entertainment value and when people are getting hurt. So there was also an incident that happened just a year ago where a woman, she was hit in the stands at Fenway Park by a broken bat. She was hospitalized, had to rehabilitate, and she's doing all right now. But this is what I'm talking about, where incidences like these can happen. And let's take a look. Another fan has been recently injured at a Major League Baseball game. This time, a 75-year-old woman is at the hospital after being struck in the face by a foul ball during the Washington Nationals and Cleveland Indians game. The woman had been taken off on a stretcher and suffered only minor cuts on her face. Although incidents like these have hit home, where last year a woman was hit in the head with a broken baseball bat at Fenway Park, and after some time in rehab recovered. Or a few months ago, when a 63-year-old woman was hit in the eye by a foul ball at a Tampa Bay Rays game, suffering fractures in her face. Here at Fenway Park, the Red Sox have extended their protective netting in order to protect fans, with a Tampa Bay Rays fan recently getting hit through a gap in their netting. Are they doing everything it takes to keep fans safe? Even with the MLB mandate and the Red Sox extending their netting from dugout to dugout, it is yet to be seen if a stronger measure should be taken. We did extend the netting at Fenway Park to help fans, to prevent injuries, but it seems injuries are still happening at the ballpark, and I don't know if they have to take a preventive measure such as hockey where you have the glass all around the arena, but that would obstruct the view. So we'll have to stay with this story and see what the MLB is going to do in the future years. So stay tuned, because I have Samantha Greaves on the show today to talk about our criminal justice system. And just, is it broken? Are there problems with it? And how can we fix this whole problem? So stay tuned.
Thank you. You got a king?
Go fish! In your face! In your face!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
A full life, measured in seats, starts with the right ones early on. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Learn how to prevent deaths and injuries by using the right car seat for your child's age and size.
Everywhere that we go, he makes people laugh and makes people smile, and I feel like I have that quality.
He's the one who always takes me fishing. I watch golf with him.
I watch him cook, because when I grow up, I want to be a cook too.
We have the same faces like this.
Dad is the one, when you fall, that picks you up.
That unconditional sense of presence and reassurance is really what makes him my father.
Thank you. You got a king?
Go fish! In your face! In your face!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
So good to see you guys. So, what's up?
Oh, we finally bought a place.
Holy cow.
You seriously have enough saved to do that?
We've been putting a little aside each month.
Jeez, at the end of the month, we have nothing left to save.
Yeah, I have no idea where it goes.
Well, you're spending a lot on...
Is it good?
Oh, God.
Oh, how is my account overdrawn?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.
If you store your guns properly.
So not just anyone can get to them.
I'll feel safer when I'm playing outside.
Safer when walking home.
I won't have to tell so many family members. I'm sorry.
I won't hear as many scary stories. Or scary news reports.
I won't have to hold someone's hand and shout you're gonna make it.
And I won't have to tell my kids, this isn't a drill.
Please.
Please.
Please. Please.
Please.
Do it for us.
For us. Do it for us.
Your family, friends, and neighbors are all counting on you. Never let your gun get into the wrong hands. If you own a firearm and are not using it, please be responsible and be sure that it's stored in a safe place. Remember, always, lock it up. For more information on firearm storage safety, visit ncpc.org.
Welcome back to Ryan's Recap. On the show today, I have Sam Greaves again, and thank you for coming today.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime.
Yes, and I was currently going to have a guest who was actually incarcerated for about 30 years. He was in prison, and he actually wasn't able to attend today. But if I can get him on a future show, that would be great. So we're gonna just go on to a discussion about the criminal system and if it's corrupt. Now, that's just where I want to lead in. How do you feel our criminal justice system and our prison system stand prior to anything that we're about to see?
Well, I feel like it could definitely use some work. There's a lot of injustice that we see in the media today that regarding our criminal justice system. I mean, there's the Alston Sterling case that recently happened. Then there are just all these all these things going on that's just not fair, and it's not okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then our prison systems too, that's just another step where people are getting sentences that are very long term, and then they come out, and it's a hard road to go down. But is the corruption also carrying over, you see, in the field of people going to jail?
Yeah, I do believe that. There are certain people who are given harder sentences than others, and a lot of the times it does have to do with discrimination and the way that person's skin color, it does have to depend. So sorry. It does depend on what that person looks like a lot of the time. So.
Yes, and that's what we're going to get into a little bit on the incriminating part, just to inform the viewer at home too about the criminal justice system in America. A lot of people aren't aware of just how we are different from many other countries. So I have a video to kind of educate and just check out.
Beep, boom, beep, 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 boom. Hey, you're terminated.
I don't understand.
Good morning, John. It's Friday. A few weeks ago, a company called Visually emailed me and was like, hey, Hank, if you could do a high-quality animated video on any issue in the world, what would you choose? Now, that was a hard choice, but I went with incarceration in America because it is messed up. Now, crime is also messed up. Bad things happen to good people, and that's terrible, and something should be done about it. Well, we send people to prison to be punished, and to prevent them from doing bad things again, and to deter others from breaking the law. Punishment, corrections, and deterrence. Now, we have this habit of thinking of prisoners as something very external to society. After all, there are literal walls between them and society, walls capped with razor wire and watched over by people with guns. But millions of prisoners are released each year. Today's prisoners are tomorrow's neighbors, so corrections should probably be the most important piece of the incarceration pie. Unfortunately, it is not. We are, however, really good at punishment. America has about 4% of the world's people and about 25% of the world's incarcerated people. We have the highest incarceration rate in the world. Over the last 30 years, that number has skyrocketed, increasing over 400%. 41% of American juveniles and young adults have been arrested by the time they turn 23. Children as young as 13 years old have been sentenced to die in prison. And our prisons violate international standards. Solitary confinement increases instability and violence in inmates and is considered by international law to be torture. But in America, it's not regulated by anyone except the prison officials. No judge, no jury. Arguably the most devastating form of punishment we enact in this country, and yet there is no appeals process. And you think it's hard to get a job in America? Well, we make it intentionally more difficult to get a job once you have a conviction on your record, not to mention just to live your life life. Convicts are ineligible for welfare, student loans, public housing, food stamps, and are often socially disconnected from community and family support structures. So in addition to having high recidivism rates, they have very high rates of homelessness and suicide. Somewhere along the way, we started to think that being tough on crime meant being tough on criminals, but that's not the same thing. Punishment is only one piece of a much larger crime reduction pie. And it's an expensive one, with some institutions paying more than $100,000 per year per prisoner. Long prison sentences have helped to decrease crime, but no more than 25% of the decrease we've seen can be attributed to incarceration, and it costs far beyond just dollars. The cost is to people, to our country, to communities, to families, and to ourselves. The policy seems to be if you've committed a felony, we just give up on you. These wars on crime, wars on drugs, they are wars on people. The smart political move is to appear tough on crime because crime is scary, so we increased minimum sentences, we arrested more people, we sent more of them to prison. That's how we looked tough on crime, but the results are in. It's bad policy. It's cruel, it's short-sighted, and to continue this policy of mass incarceration would be foolish. We're living inside of a massive $75 billion per year failed experiment. 2010 was the first year in nearly 40 years that the number of incarcerated individuals in America did not increase. Policymakers are beginning to realize the magnitude of this failure, but there is a long way to go. John, I'll see you on Tuesday.
Now, that's actually on my Facebook page at BNN-TV's Ryan's Recap News and Sports Show. You can add it as a group, and also I post all my videos and shows on that. But overall, we see there America #1 for incarceration in all the world. It's just skyrocketing numbers. And really, is it helping?
No. It's not helping at all. They should, I feel like it's all part of a political, see the thing is, I've never been to jail, I've never been incarcerated, I don't know many people who have been incarcerated, but I do feel like it's part of a political agenda for certain people to be in jail and certain people to be in these systems, because then other people can be better off. And when you're putting all these people in jail, they're not thinking of the lower class, they're not thinking of the middle class. It's all a political agenda raised by the higher class.
Mm-hmm. And there's like the ongoing issue of drugs in this country and people being found for minor offenses. This is just one example, and they're an ounce or whatever of drugs, and then they get their whole lives changed.
Well, that is
altered.
true, because there are different sentences if you're in possession of cocaine than whether you're in possession of crack. So you can be in possession of a lot of coke, a lot more. I don't know how much exactly, the exact number, I wish I did, but you can be in possession for way more cocaine than you are in possession of crack, but you actually get a higher prison sentence with the crack. So way more of the amount, I wish I had the statistics, but way more, you can have way more cocaine and lighter sentence, but the amount of crack you have, you get a harder sentence. And the thing is, that's a drug that most of the time we see in lower income communities and stuff, rougher neighborhoods, but cocaine, I mean, a lot of the times I'm in school, I see the rich white college kids using it a lot. And so I do see disparities with that within just drugs, like different sentences for who's carrying the drug, what kind of drug is in possession. So yeah, it is unfair.
And even, not even drugs sometimes, it's just minor offenses. And even getting a speeding ticket today is so much more than it was back in the day.
Yeah.
So what it is that you can take the individual who's just a normal human being and look at it, and they're getting punished very harshly. America, as in the video said, it has some of the hardest punishments for crime in the world. And what I want to look at is a video of Senator Elizabeth Warren, who talks about the discrepancy between people who are high up and people who are in companies and people who break the laws and their stand and what they end up having to do for criminal punishment, what they have to go through, and what the common individual like you or me, or not part of a big organization or company, or not a name, has to go through. So let's take a look at that.
Mr. President.
Senator from Massachusetts.
Mr. President, across the street at the Supreme Court, 4 simple words are engraved on the face of the building: equal justice under law. That's supposed to be the basic premise of our legal system, that our laws are just and that everyone, no matter how rich or how powerful or how well connected, will be held equally accountable if they break those laws. But that's not the America we live in. It's not equal justice when a kid gets thrown in jail for stealing a car, while a CEO gets a huge raise when his company steals billions. It's not equal justice when someone hooked on opioids gets locked up for buying pills on the street, but bank executives get off scot-free for laundering nearly $1 billion of drug cartel money. We have one set of law on the books, but there are really 2 legal systems. One legal system is for big corporations, for the wealthy and the powerful. In this legal system, government officials fret about unintended consequences if they're too tough. In this legal system, instead of demanding actual punishment for breaking the law, the government regularly accepts token fines and phony promises to do better next time. In this legal system, even after huge companies plead guilty to felonies, law enforcement officials are so timid that they don't even bring charges against individuals who work there. That's one system. The second system is for everyone else. In this second system, whoever breaks the law can be held accountable. Government enforcement isn't timid here, it's aggressive. Consequences be damned. Just ask the families of Sandra Bland, Freddie Gray, and Michael Brown about how aggressive they are. In this legal system, the government locks up people for decades, ruining lives over minor drug crimes, because that's what the law demands. Yes, there are 2 legal systems, one for the rich and powerful and one for everyone else. Last Friday, I released a report about the special legal system for big corporations and their executives. The report is called Rigged Justice, and it lists 20 examples from the last year alone in which the government caught big companies breaking the law, defrauding taxpayers, covering up deadly safety problems, stealing billions from consumers and clients, and then just let them off easy. In most cases, the government imposed fines and didn't require any admission of guilt. In the 20 cases I examined, just 1 executive went to jail for a measly 3 months, and that case involved 29 deaths. Most fines were only a tiny fraction of the company's annual profits, and some were structured so that the companies could just write them off as a tax deduction. It's all part of a rigged game in Washington. Big businesses and powerful donors with their armies of lobbyists and lawyers, they write the rules to protect themselves. And when they don't follow the rules, they work the system to avoid any real responsibility. How can it be that corporate offenders are repeatedly let off the hook when the vast majority of Americans, Republicans, Democrats, independents, want tougher punishment and stronger new laws for corporate crimes? Well, that's how a rigged system works. Giant companies win no matter what the American people want. Right now, we can see the rigged game in action. Republican politicians love to say they're tough on crime. They love to talk about personal responsibility and accountability when they're back home in their districts. But when they come right here to Washington, they're pushing to make it even easier for corporate criminals to escape justice. And here's one example. It starts actually with a great idea: reforming the criminal justice sentencing system to help some of the thousands of people who have been locked away for years at low-level offenses. Legislators in both parties have been working for years to slowly build bipartisan momentum for sentencing reform. This is enormously important, a first step away from a broken system where half our federal jails are filled with nonviolent drug offenders. But now, all of a sudden, some Republicans are threatened to block a reform unless Congress includes a so-called mens rea amendment to make it much harder for the government to prosecute hundreds of corporate crimes, crimes for everything from wire fraud to mislabeling prescription drugs. In other words, for these Republicans, the price of helping out people unjustly locked up in jail for years will be to make it even harder to lock up a white-collar criminal for even a single day. That is shameful, shameful. It is shameful because we're already way too easy on corporate lawbreakers. And that's not all. Tomorrow, the House will be voting on another Republican bill. This one would make it much harder to investigate and prosecute bank fraud. Yeah, you heard that right. Tomorrow, the House will be voting on a Republican bill to make it much harder to investigate and prosecute bank fraud. You know, back when the bankers triggered a savings loan crisis in the late 1980s, more than 1,000 of them were convicted of crimes, and many got serious jail time. Boy, bankers learned their lesson. Now, the lesson was not, don't break the law. The lesson they learned was, get Washington on your side. And it worked. After systemic fraud on Wall Street helped spark a financial crisis in 2008, that cost millions of Americans their jobs and their homes, federal prosecutors didn't put a single Wall Street executive in jail. Spineless regulators extracted a few fines and then just moved on. But I guess even those fines were just too much for the big banks and their fancy executives. So now they've gotten their buddies in Congress to line up behind a bill that would gut one of the main laws. It's called FIREA. The Justice Department, one of the main laws that the Justice Department used to impose those fines. Mr. President, it has been 7 years since the financial crisis. A lot of people in Washington may want to forget, but the American people have long memories. They remember how corporate fraud caused millions of families to lose their homes, their jobs, and their pensions. And they also remember who made out like bandits. And they didn't send us here to help out the bandits. The American people expect better from us. They expect us to straighten out our criminal justice system and reform drug enforcement practices that do nothing but destroy lives and communities. They expect us to stand up against unjustified violence. But they also expect us to protect the financial system and to hold Wall Street executives accountable when they break the law. They expect us to hold big companies accountable when they steal billions of dollars from taxpayers, when they rip off students or veterans or retirees or single moms, or when they cover up health and safety problems and people get sick, people get hurt, or people die because of it. The American people know that we have two legal systems, but they expect us to fix it. They expect us to stand for justice. They expect us to once again honor the simple notion that in America, nobody is above the law. And anyone in Congress who thinks they can simply talk tough on crime and then vote to make it harder to crack down on corporate criminals, hear this. I promise you, the American people are watching. And they will remember. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield.
So welcome back, and that's a powerful speech by Elizabeth Warren, and what that actually came off of was my Facebook once again, BNN-TV's Ryan's Recap News and Sports Show. So check that out if you want further detail or you want to review that video again. But Elizabeth Warren makes a very strong point on how banks and these high companies and higher officials, and even you saw recently with Hillary Clinton being criminally investigated by the FBI, and she ends up getting away kind of scot-free, where it seems like a person like you and me, we wouldn't get away with this. We would be sentenced harder. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, the more money or power you have, the more you're able to get away with things. I mean, it's just, I feel like it's always been like that. If you're able to, you know, pay some people off to be quiet, or if you have so much prestige, like you come from a long lineage of people who were, you know, important in this country, then yeah, you're able to get away with a lot of things. And it is something that needs to change. But as of now, I don't know, I'm not sure about how much it's going to change within the next couple of years.
So is there more of a focus on making it so people who go to jail, like a common citizen like you or me, we can be kind of fixed in a society, rehabilitated? Or is it more about the issue of people who are high up, who have this significant power over the courts, who aren't getting their jail sentences and their prison time that maybe you and me would have gotten?
It's because they have, I just think it's just because they have the power and the privilege. They might even know some of the judges. They could be so important within the community or the country or something that they're able to pay off the judge or pay some people in the jury for lighter sentences. So, you know, like they say, money talks. So if you're able to like do that, it's not something that should happen, but it does happen. And that's what all comes down to. And like I was saying before, they do want certain people locked away. And it's not so much of the crime they committed. It's like, oh, well, now less money could be spent on other things. Like I've heard a lot of people talk, and a lot of people really come down hard when it comes to welfare and things like that. People are like, oh, well, why do certain people get this welfare and this and that? And I've even heard some people say, oh, well, if those people are locked up, then we can save money on this. So it's just a lot of just corruption and people wanting to save money, people want to stay in power, things like that.
And in our first video, it made reference to how much money the prison systems make. It's millions of dollars every year. Yeah. So it becomes an issue when you have the money involved, because why would you want to like not make a certain amount of money every year, taxpayers' money usually, off of criminals? The more criminals you have in your prison, the more money you're gonna have to basically say it's going towards the prisoners, but with worse and worse deteriorating materials around them, with them getting less and less rights in prison, is it really going towards that?
No, I really don't believe think about when you get your paycheck, how much money is taken out. I see that sometimes. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I feel like I work more hours and even more money's being taken out. And it's like, come on, well, what's the sense of me working these extra hours then? Because that money is not going towards me, it's going to taxes. And I feel like they don't care about the prisoners. They don't care about their condition of life. That's going into I think, the money. This is just me. I mean, I have no proof of this. This is just my theory. But I think, it's going in the pockets of the guards and, the prison officials and other higher up people. It's not going towards the prisoners. And yeah, once you go to jail, I mean, that's it. Depending on what you go for and depending on who you are. But yeah, typically that's about it. Like, your life is, I hate to say this because this sounds so negative and it's not the case for everybody, but your life is pretty much over depending on who you are and what thing is. Once you go to prison, it takes a lot to get back up. But even so, I feel like, I mean, there might be some case that I don't know about, but I feel like you're never really on top once you have that convict like behind your name, you know what I mean? Or once you've already been in prison, you can never make it to that top. Yeah, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
I kind of think of the movie Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, that was a great movie. Yeah, that's one of my favorites, actually. Yeah.
The Warren making so much money and making so much profit. Also, with that said, do you think in an ethical view that people deserve second chances if they went out and did something
I really
horrible?
do think people deserve second chances. And when you mention the Shawshank Redemption, a lot of the times people are wrongly convicted and wrongly accused of something they didn't do. And I feel like there are some cases where now it is getting a little bit better. I saw one where they, again, I wish I had the materials, but I saw one where this guy was wrongly accused of a crime. I forget what the crime was, but he was wrongly accused. They let him out after 20 years. This poor man was in jail for 20 years, and they finally let him out, and he was crying and things like that. But of course, he was a black man, and they put him in jail for all that time, something he didn't do. But no, people do deserve second chances, and people should be able to get better jobs than they do when they get out of prison, because a lot of the times people can change in prison. You have a lot of time to think about what you did. You have a lot of time to think about how you can better yourself and start anew. So they should be able to be given that chance. It's not fair that most of the times they aren't being given that second chance.
And I made reference to a news story in the beginning of my show, and it was on the Freddie Gray case. And the Freddie Gray case, nobody was criminally charged in that whole case. And that was a very interesting quote by the judge in that case. What we realized very early on in this case was that police investigating police, whether they're friends or colleagues, was problematic. There's a little bit of an issue there where if I know the judge, I know I'm connected with the people behind the scenes making my court decision, or I'm being prosecuted and I'm friends with some high authority, in this case law enforcement, am I going to get the same crime or criminal sentence as someone who's a...
Of course not. You're a police officer, right? You did something awful, which he did. He shot him. You do something awful. Of course, you're not. I knew he wasn't going to be convicted because, you know, his buddies are helping him out. They're like, oh, you know, that's my friend. You know, I'm a cop too. If they're doing the investigation, basically your colleagues doing the investigation, of course you're not going to get that hard sentence. Of course you're not going to be convicted because you're in the group of people. You're in with the group. You're with the people who are doing the convictions and putting people in jail. So even if you do something awful, you're going to get off. It's all about who you know as well. A lot of the time, they say that with almost everything. You know, it's all about who you know. And you know what? It goes for the little people too. My friend, for instance, her uncle's a cop. She got pulled over for speeding. She didn't get a ticket. All she had to do was call her uncle and say, hey, listen, they're pulling me over. They're like, oh, your uncle's so-and-so? Yeah, oh, go right ahead. So it really is a lot of the times. Another thing, all about who you know.
And these are some of the issues you can see as a common trend in our criminal system, in how people are sentenced. And we want to continue this topic, so we're going to take a quick PSA break, and we'll be back with Sam Greaves.
So they say it's a man's world? I don't see anybody's name on it.
While they were doing their thing, we slowly changed ours.
Today, women can do anything men can do. And there's one thing we're even better at.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Welcome back to Ryan's Recap live show today. Also, you can call in and join our discussion on the criminal justice system and if you find it unjust. So, Sam, where we left off about the connection with people in the courtroom. If you have a connection, it can lead to different sentencings and change your whole court trial, basically. So, with that said, too, how much do you think race also plays in this factor? It's something where you see all the problems in the criminal system and you see the confrontations between police and people of different races. So what's your perception on this?
Oh, I think it has a lot to do with who's getting these harder sentences and, you know, who gets off and who doesn't, because, you know, they really don't care. They're not going to care if a black person goes to jail a lot of the times. You know, the system does not care. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed, and that's how come you have, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement and things like this going on, because, you know, Black lives do matter, and we are a part of this country as well, and there shouldn't be this injustice going on within our system. Another thing is, too, when it goes to how race plays into different things like that, did you ever notice when you watch the news, when a white kid is missing, it's like all over the place. Like, oh my God, like save this child. You know, there's Amber Alerts, but you know how many black kids go missing? And we don't see that on mainstream media. So race has to do with a lot, with, you know, who's protected, who goes to jail or not. And sometimes I feel like, yes, it is race, but it's also class. There's a lot of classism too. So who has the money and who doesn't?
And let's stay on race for a second.
Yeah.
I also reported on the show today, there was a 78% increase on gun violence with police officers being killed. Now, with this said, that must play in a lot to this conversation of like criminals who come out of jail who have just been given a harder sentence than they were expecting, and then they have this confrontation and it probably builds to it between the police and a common jail person who just had their struggles with police. What do you see in that?
The thing is, you know what? I don't believe in disrespecting cops, and I don't believe all cops should be targeted too, because the thing is, not all blacks are criminals, not all blacks are low income, not all blacks are the stereotypes that they say, and not all cops. I don't think all cops are awful. I don't think all cops are out to, you know, hurt black folks and like do all these terrible things. I don't think all cops are bad, and I don't think all blacks are criminals. And I think there needs to be more of people looking at the individual person and looking at that's what there's none of. Everybody's looking at everybody else as a whole group. Nobody looks at the individual. And I really wish there was more of that. You should look at the person as opposed to, you know, oh, they're in the uniform, they're blue, or oh, they're black, so they're going to be like this. Like, there needs to be some eradication of these stereotypes, and people feed into them so much, where me personally, I don't really care about stereotypes. Like, yes, they say there's some truth behind stereotypes, but, you know, you shouldn't make that the thing on how you base someone's character off of. You should always give somebody a chance, and that just isn't happening.
And let's take it from the individual perspective to like a company perspective. Something that Elizabeth Warren made mention to.
Yeah.
These big companies, when they get caught for making larceny or doing some kind of behind the scenes act, do they deserve the same sentences as a citizen?
Of course they do. Oh, and going back on your last question really quick, I don't think a lot of these criminals come out of jail and they're like, oh, time to get the cops. I don't think they're doing that. They're like, hey, how am I gonna like get my life together? And a lot of criminals don't even know how they're gonna survive out of jail. So I think that's awful when some people think, oh, as soon as they get out of jail, they're gonna like go after the cops and stuff like that, and they're gonna cause ruckus in the community. No, they don't even know if they have a place to live when they get out of jail. And as far as, what were we saying? I'm so sorry, getting off topic.
Just about the companies and how larger
Oh
companies.
yeah, so they should be given harder sentences, and they should be tried like an average person like you or me is tried when it comes to crimes like that. But they aren't, because, like I was saying before, they pay people off, they have certain status, and people are like, oh, let's turn a blind eye really quick. And I do believe, as I mentioned before, they do pay off some people who are in the jury. It's all very like undercover and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, with the whole process, let's try to find a coping scenario here.
Mm-hmm.
Should we be a more rehabilitating country? Should we be taking individuals and then doing something like I've heard in other countries, they'll do educational processes that when somebody's caught doing something wrong, they're talked to almost as through a counselor. It's a counseling session. And they've been found to have the least, smallest amounts of people going out and committing the act a second time or a third time. So with that said, is that the process? Is that how you see us going down?
I honestly think that'd be great, because people, they commit these crimes for certain reasons. And like I was saying before, you have to look at the individual. If you were to give somebody counseling, that'd be a great idea. They can have that and they can see, oh, well, I committed this crime because of this, and they can actually learn from their mistake and get to the root of the problem through counseling. So yeah, that'd be great. And I think that would help towards rehabilitating some people and some of the things going on. Yeah.
Are you for or against the death penalty?
Oh, that's a tough question. You know what? See, the thing is, there's some people who do such despicable crimes like, you know, child molestation and just these awful things. And I'm like, wow, that person does deserve the death penalty. But half of me is like, if we did have the death penalty, because our system is, and some states do have it, but because our system is so corrupt, the wrong people would be sent to that electric chair, or like, you know, given that shot, the wrong people would. And I feel like it would be not used to eradicate the criminals, the people doing vicious crimes, but it would be used to, this is kind of bad, but I think it would be used as a form to get rid of different races and different types of people. That's kind of crazy to say, but I feel like some injustice would go on with that, and you know, that may happen in some places.
Well, it hasn't been unheard of that people who were actually found innocent, especially after DNA testing came out, were found guilty in court. And with something like that, there have been people who have been killed through this. And just to wrap up, overall, this is a big discussion. There's a lot of topics.
Oh, you can go on and on with this, yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
And then just a quick fact we'll throw in, where the incarceration process, when there is a death penalty, it's more money to the state to actually prosecute someone because they appeal it so many times. It's always appeal because it's a death penalty. That appeal is more taxpayers' money than just a usual scenario of putting a person away for life.
Yeah.
But overall, we have to wrap up the show. Great topic, great discussion, and I want to thank Sam Greaves for coming on the show. I want to thank my whole crew behind the scenes. Great work today. And I'm Ryan Chevalier. Thanks for tuning in to the first ever live show of Ryan's Recap.